ahead and get going. My name is Margaret Bushy, and I'm with the Small Business Development Center, the state office here in Boise, Idaho. And we are hosting a webinar today that has to do with applying for electrical vehicle charging station grant funds. And this is presented by our Environmental Assistance Coordinator, Belinda Breidenbach, and she is our go-to person, everything environmental. And so we're very happy to have her with us to basically walk you through this process so you can take advantage of this great program. The best way to get the most out of this webinar is to go ahead and open up your chat box. We'll be chatting in some pertinent information in there. And it's also a way that you can ask, you can interact with each other. And then we also want to take your questions. Questions are important to us, and we're hoping to have some time. We should have some time at the end of the webinar to answer your questions. So open up your Q&A as well and type in any questions in that box if you have anything that comes to mind as we're going through the program. So, and we also wanted to let you know we'll be sending out a recording of this webinar along with some links, and the slides themselves that we're showing are going to also on our website. So if you need to look at the slides, they are available on our website as well, which is idahoSBDC.org. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and hand it over to Belinda to walk you through the process.
Good morning. I'm Belinda Breidenbach, the Environmental Assistance Coordinator, as Margaret said, and I'm going to share my screen with you. All right, so today I want to talk to you about grants to put in electric vehicle charging stations. So Idaho actually has $2.8 million to award in grants for electric vehicle charging stations. And one of the questions is, where did this money come from? And the short answer is the Volkswagen settlement. And the long answer is that Volkswagen admitted to manufacturing 11 million diesel vehicles that were designed to cheat to pass the emission test. You may have remembered this a few years back. And they actually were emitting over 40 times the NOx, which is nitrogen oxides. It's one of the 5 criteria pollutants. It forms smog and acid rain, and it affects people's breathing. So VW settled the case, and that's why it gets called the VW settlement. And every state received money based on how many of those violating vehicles were sold within their state. And the intention of the money is to offset those excess emissions. So I'm not going to go into the slide, but it's up there in case you want all of the details for the VW settlement. But the big question is, how does Idaho benefit from this? And Idaho has the opportunity to receive a total of $17.3 million. And they came up with a plan for how to use this money. And you can see there's 4 parts. And the first part they call light duty zero emission vehicle supply equipment. And that means electric vehicle charging stations. Idaho actually has 2 programs, the electric vehicle charging stations and a diesel replacement program. The rest of that money has been going toward the diesel replacement program, and DEQ runs that separately, and they have been taking applications on a cyclical basis and awarding grants for replacing older diesel vehicles. And here is a brief overview of the program. It's from the guide, and if you would like to, the slide will be there for you to look at later. But right now, I want to look at the Idaho EV Corridor Map. So the governors of 7 western states signed an agreement that they were going to have electric vehicle corridors that connected between the 7 western states so that you could take a road trip in an electric vehicle and be able to charge it. And the plan is to have fast charging every 50 miles. So those highways, some of us are familiar with regions, either SBDC regions or DEQ regions, different agency regions, or just looking at our cities here. Up in the northern part of the state, I-90 and US 95, all the way from the Canadian border down through Lewiston and all the way into the Treasure Valley. And then also Idaho 55 as it comes through at McCall, Cascade, Horseshoe Bend. And then over in Twin Falls, US 93 and Idaho 75, and those highways travel north, also make a big split and come up through Sun Valley and through Stanley and Salmon. And then Pocatello has the triangle of interstates. So right now, these are the fast chargers that have been installed across Idaho. You'll see the ones in red, and they're on the interstates. These were put in by Electrify America, which is another part of that VW settlement. But the green ones, those are the projects that have been awarded grants through the Idaho program. And you'll see there's one up in Bonners Ferry, there's one in Lewiston at the Clearwater River Casino and Lodge, and there's one in Haley. But you'll see that those corridors are north-south corridors, really do not have much infrastructure in them yet. And the office in the state is the Governor's Office of Energy and Mineral Resources. They are really wanting to get applications along these north-south corridors. It's not that there's been tons of applications and they're getting rejected. They're waiting on applications for this. So you have a great opportunity. The applications actually opened at the end of 2018, and the money was structured so it had to be spread out over the first 3 years. And then there's a maximum of 10 years in which the $2.8 million needs to be used. So there is definitely money available. And now I want to just kind of go off on a tangent and hopefully preemptively answer a lot of questions about electric vehicles and their charging. So there's 3 basic types of electric vehicles. There's the hybrid that has an electric motor and a gas engine, and it uses regenerative braking to capture energy and increase your fuel mileage. Think of the Toyota Prius that has been on the market for over 20 years. You cannot plug those vehicles in. Then we have the plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. And some of the ones that you'll see out there now are the big SUV Toyota Highlander, the Chrysler Pacifica minivan, the Ford Escape, which is a smaller SUV. They have an electric motor and a gas engine. You plug them into charge, but you've got that combustion engine either to extend your range or as a backup. And then the third type is the battery electric. And those are the all electric vehicles. So the first one that comes to mind is usually Tesla, but the Chevy Bolt and Nissan Leaf have been popular brands. And Hyundai has the Kona SUV out, which is very new. And these vehicles are all electric and they have to be charged. And then another question that comes up frequently is, are we really going electric? Are there really that many electric vehicles? And it's actually interesting. You might not think there are, But the next time you go into a shopping area with a big parking lot, your grocery store, walk down and start noticing all of the different cars, and you'll be amazed at how many have a little placard on there that'll say hybrid or that they'll be electric. They don't look like some strange concept car of the past. They look just like every other car. And in fact, Volkswagen, within a few years, is going to be offering every car that they make in an option of gas or electric. And so last year, in 2019, Tesla actually delivered over 350,000 new all-electric vehicles. And the big manufacturers, the ones we're most familiar with, like Ford and GM, BMW, Nissan, Toyota, they're actually selling tens of thousands of electric vehicles a year. And right now there's 40 different models that you can purchase here in the United States. The pickup truck's supposed to be coming out very soon. Several different makers. There's minivans, there's sports cars, there's your basic sedan. There's even an EV Hummer about to come out. And one of the things that people don't realize is that in the long run, an electric vehicle is actually much less expensive to operate and to maintain. If you think about it, if you're eliminating that internal combustion engine and all of the maintenance and repair on it, then you're really much cheaper to operate. And then, of course, the electricity is far cheaper than gasoline or diesel. Now, with that said, currently, the electric vehicles are less than 2% of overall US sales. But the largest number of sales, and actually a lot of the vehicles get sent to first, is California. So the Western states are really in the lead. And if you come up to our neighbors, Oregon and Washington, you've got extensive electric vehicle networks through those states, and they're right next door to us. So we are right on the edge of the cutting edge of electric vehicles. And the network for charging is growing. And you do get into that question of which comes first. Do you get more chargers and then people buy more electric vehicles, or people buy more electric vehicles and then they put in more chargers? And it doesn't really matter if it was the chicken or the egg that came first. You definitely are getting more of the vehicles and more of the chargers. So I wish I had more updated numbers, but I couldn't get 2019. So this is battery electric vehicles. The 2017, we had just over 200 in Idaho. And in 2018, that jumped to over 1,000. And we know it went up even more in 2019. We just unfortunately don't have the data for that yet, but it's definitely a growing market. And these numbers don't include your hybrids. So now let's look at some basics of charging an electric vehicle. One of the really important things to understand is that different vehicles have different plugs. Unfortunately, there is no standard. Only Tesla can charge at their Tesla pumps, and they have put in their own charging network across the country. Now, Asian car manufacturers tend to use a system called CHAdeMO, and the US and European Union vehicles tend to use something called an SAE combo. And of course, the two don't work together. But there are combination chargers on the market. They have both the CHAdeMO plug and the SAE combo plug. And that's going to be very important for you to know as you're looking at what type of charger that you would like to install. You're definitely going to be wanting to have that combination charger. So now, if I go into the types of EV chargers, we have there's three types. There's the level 1. That is basically you've driven to work, maybe it's been a good commute, and you come home and you just plug this in your garage on your standard outlet. It could be the same outlet that you have the vacuum cleaner plugged into. And from empty, it will take you overnight about 8 hours to recharge that car battery to full. And then we see level 2 chargers. If you look around, like I'm here in Boise, Idaho, and there's one at the grocery store. As I go downtown, I always see one at the Discovery Center Museum. There's one in front of City Hall, and there's 8 of them on campus where our offices are. These are at workplaces, shopping centers, and they can charge a vehicle that's empty in between 4 and 6 hours. But what they're really mostly used for is topping off your tank. You're going into shop, or you're going into downtown, or you're going to do some work at the university, and you plug in for an hour or two and top off your tank. The third type, the DC fast charger. This is the type that the grant is aimed at. These are for fast fill-ups and long distance travel. You can recharge a vehicle from empty in as little as half an hour up to 1 hour. So these are designed for road trips. Another question that comes up is, how much does this equipment cost? So if you're looking at that level 2 charger, you see the power for that is much lower, and you can put one of these in between $1,500 and $6,500. Now the fast charger, much higher power, and you'll see that there's been a big change in price. Back in 2018, when this grant program started, it was very hard to get numbers, and the charging stations were $75,000 to $112,000 were the estimates that we could get. Now in 2020, as I'm looking at the chargers out there, the equipment estimates are down to between $40,000 and $70,000. So that's a pretty dramatic drop. So now you ask yourself, should my business host an electric vehicle charger? And here's some of the things to consider. It's obviously forward-thinking new technology, and a lot of us like that. We want to be on the cutting edge. You will be bringing in new customers that have electric vehicles, and the number of electric vehicle customers is going to grow over time. You also might attract customers that don't have an electric vehicle, but they're green-minded. And when those customers come, they're going to stay for a minimum of 20 minutes and up to an hour at your business. Gasoline fill-ups, they estimate that they run between 6 minutes and 15 minutes at a filling station. So you definitely have a customer there for a longer period of time. And having an EV charger literally puts your business on the EV map. There are crowdsourced maps that show where all of the chargers are. And then some of these individual charging companies, they also run their own mapping system and let people know when chargers are coming up. Even when they're driving, it can alert them, you know, you have a station in only 15 miles or however you have it set. So The really important considerations are you on the Idaho EV Corridor? Because that's where they're funding for. And being on those north-south highways, most of them are 2 lanes, and in places, we have 4 lanes, but our communities are closer to those highways. So I think it's going to be much easier to get into that half-mile radius from that EV corridor. And they prefer it within just 1/4 mile of it. But I think we're going to find a lot of our businesses, they're directly on the EV corridors. There's also an accessibility issue. And with an interstate, you're dealing with interchanges, and you don't want to be at an interchange that's an exit only and no one can get back on. So I think we're going to have very easy accessibility from any of our north-south highways. There's the question of, do you have a good cell signal? And the reason for this is most of the payment systems require a cell service. Is the location that you have well lit and accessible 24 hours a day? Are there amenities nearby, like shopping and restaurants? And you don't have to be a restaurant, but if somebody could walk there in less than 5 minutes, it makes the entire site more attractive. There are also power considerations to think about. As part of the application, you'll see that you have to contact your power company. You have to find out, what is your site's existing electrical service? Do you need any upgrades? And if you do, what will that infrastructure and upgrade cost? And then you'll need to ask your power company, how will fast charging affect my business's power bill? How is your rate structure set up? And are there peak demand charges? So I can tell you that in northern Idaho, EVSE, that also is into Washington State, is very knowledgeable on everything with EV charging stations. They've actually been putting in a number themselves. And then in Idaho, the areas that are covered by Idaho Power, they also have a lot of knowledge on this, and a whole department that deals with electric vehicles. But some of these areas, you have some smaller power companies as well. So what actually is included in the project? Because you start thinking, ooh, power upgrades, infrastructure, uh-oh. But the grant can actually include not only the cost of purchasing that physical charger itself, but the installation of it and the maintenance of the station. It's very inclusive. And how much can you ask for the grant? If you're a business and the charging station is available to the public at what they call a non-government owned property, you can apply for 80% of the cost. And if you're a municipality or a government and you're located on government owned property, as long as it's available to the public, you can request up to 100% of the cost. Now, there's a few other funding options, and I'm just going to put these out there and you can look at them later. They haven't really been taken advantage of, but just in case one of these really appeals to you, I wanted to let you know. You can get 60% if it's at a workplace, or 60% if it's at a multi-unit dwelling, meaning an apartment complex. There's also some money available for hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, and there haven't been any applications on that hydrogen fuel cell, but it's good to know what else is available. So you're thinking, yes, I'm going for it. What's next? Apply. Now, the application does not guarantee you that you'll get the funding. OEMR has a review panel that evaluates the applications, and then once they select them, they'll submit them to the trust fund. And right now, there is not a closing date. That other program on diesel replacement has opening and closing dates. This one is open. I have the application website here, but DEQ has been testing out their new website, and the link to it has been down yesterday and today. So CJ has put this up on our SBDC Environmental Services website, and there is the PDF of the application and the application guide on our site. And I'm sure within a few days, DEQ will have theirs back and operational as well. So let's walk through this application. Obviously, your business name, and most importantly, who the contact is and how to contact them. And give your project a title. It just helps as they're referring to the projects. So the address for your charging site, and you want to make sure that, this is easy. Somebody goes and types it into a map service online and it just pulls it right up and they know where you are. If there's something wonky with how your address pulls up, you can put in the lat lon as well. So, and they ask you if it's government owned or not. Now, the third question is asking you for a site plan. But I want to actually look down at question 4, because question 4 is asking you for how is the whole site laid out. And I think it's very easy to take an aerial view map from one of the mapping sites that we all use, and you take that image and overlay onto it. How do the roads access it there? Where does the power come into the site? Where do you plan on putting the chargers? Is there room that if you wanted to add more in the future, that you could add them in the same location? And I personally like visuals, and I think that using an overlay on one of those maps is very easy to put together as well. Now, when I've spoken with electric vehicle owners, I've had a few interesting things about what they really look for when they're stopping at a charging station. And one of the most interesting was that they really like the idea of a covering so that there's some shade when it's very hot. And they haven't liked when they've shown up at places and had to actually shovel the snow out to get up to the charger. One of the things that was very interesting is that EV owners have said they like the chargers not to be located in the prime parking. When that parking is reserved for the customers that just come up and park in front of your business, they get to go right in and they don't feel like there's a spot, or they don't pull into that spot that they block. And then the electric vehicle is waiting for someone else to finish shopping before they can use the charger. So somewhere off on the periphery. And they also all say they want to eat on the road trip. They want to have restaurants nearby, and everybody on a road trip, I think, no matter what, we're all looking for a clean bathroom. So now, question 5, attach the documentation from your local utility. This is really important, and this is one of the first contacts that you need to make is with your utility company. And they will come out, they will assess your site for you, they will tell you how much power you've got coming in. And this is really the primary thing to do, because they may tell you, oh, you wanted to place the chargers over there, but did you know there's actually a really much easier access to the power if you picked this location? And then you have some more information to make your decision on for siting. And that information from the power company needs to accompany this application. It really helps. And one of the most important things is putting in the name and contact information of who your power company representative is. Another question that they have that gets you thinking and preparing is, are there any permits required? So you figure out, no, in my area, we don't have these permits. We do have this. You get an idea from your city or your county. Does it take long to put these permits through? Is this something I should be starting early in the process, or it's not going to be that difficult to do? Now, I find question 7 to be challenging. The project schedule and milestones. It's like, where do I start? Because I don't really know how long it's going to take for my application to get reviewed and if it gets approved. So I am going to suggest you start off with, application review and approval and take an estimate. And then you have a much better idea of the deadlines from there, of how quickly, do you need infrastructure work done, and what would that take? And the equipment that you've selected, they are telling you that the timelines for them to ship and install are such, and just base it off of there and understanding those deadlines. And if there's any questions, OEMR will definitely contact you. So now, section 8, the technical requirements. You remember saying you really want to have a combination charger that has both that CHAdeMO and the SAE. So you're going to most probably recommend getting that multi-port fast charger. And then they have this question, can the charging equipment expand for increased power? It's like, what does that mean? Well, what they're asking is that, what is the power supply that you have coming in? Could you supply more power in the future? And then is this charger set up so that in a few years, if all of a sudden they are able to supply more power and charge even faster, can you basically get an upgrade, an add-on to the equipment that's there, and make it easy to just increase your power, which makes your station more desirable? There's also question 9 down here, the point of sale equipment. And I can tell you that back in 2018, this was a lot more challenging. There were the handful of companies that made the chargers, but you would look to buy a charger and then you would try to figure out how you were going to do a payment system. And then you had to figure out, who were you going to get to maintain it? Well, in only 2 years, the charging station manufacturers have really basically pulled it all together into one package. So when you look at some of these different companies, you'll see they'll offer you the charger and they will do the installation. They'll have a service plan to keep up the maintenance on the charger, and they will handle the point of sale. And a lot of these companies, they have different plans where people pay subscription fees or they pay per use, and they're attract it to all of those chargers that are on the network that they've signed up with and they're associated with, or maybe they use a few different networks. And that's now nicely all tied together when you select a charger. And something very important to look at as you're looking at these different charging companies. So another question comes up, how many? And it's recommended that you install 2 chargers if you can, for 2 reasons. Customers look at that map and they go, oh, look, there's 2 chargers. So even if I arrive and someone else is charging, I'm still able to charge. And depending on where you place them, you get more visibility for the chargers and you get more visibility for your business. So let's go to question number 10, the site-specific attributes. This is, what do you tick off the box on? Do you have the cellular service? Is there restaurants, shopping? What's the accessibility, the lighting, the hours of operation? Paint the picture of what makes your location desirable. And then number 11 kind of jumps back to that 8 and 9. What is the fee structure? You're probably going to go with a company that has that already set up. And so you can just mention what company or what plan, and you don't have to go into great detail on how much you're making off of the sales. Again, the financial structure, they want to know who owns it, and are you receiving financial benefits? Well, yes, you'll be receiving whatever the customers are paying to charge their vehicles there. Are you taking care of maintenance and repair? And as I said, now there's contracts for that are part of the chargers. And here's the important one. What is the duration of commitment to fund the maintenance and repairs? And I can tell you that the application guideline tells you that you have to commit to keeping the station operational for 5 years. Now, let's take a look at the costs. And you'll see that there's a lot of things on these eligible project costs. You can put in for the engineering design costs as long as you haven't already spent that money. The physical infrastructure of the charger, all of those electrical system upgrades, if there's some other component that you find is needed, the labor to install, permitting fees, other costs, such as those maintenance contracts, and then put down your total estimated project cost, and really be careful here to go through all of your possible costs, because you don't want to leave a cost off of this. And if you need to expand that list for more detail, then do so. But you definitely, you want to make sure you're capturing every bit of your cost. And then matching funds. So if you're a business, you're going to put up 20% and you're going to ask for 80%. And if you're a government, then you're going to be asking for 100%. And finally, the signature line. And then that application gets emailed over to the Office of Energy and Mineral Resources at the state.
Okay.
So, and I just also want to say before the questions that I am available and happy to help you with not only any questions, but actually putting together your application for this grant program.
Wow. Thank you, Belinda. That's been, I mean, this was power packed with information. And yeah, we are here at the SBDC to help small businesses succeed. And this is one way in which we certainly can do it. So please take advantage of Belinda's offer. But we do have some questions that have popped up, and I'll go ahead and give you those, Belinda, and see what you can do with the answers for that. Number one, are there requirements to get the funds? Is this open to everyone?
There are no restrictions on who applies.
Great. So anyone can do it. That's great. And then question number two, how many miles can a vehicle drive on a full charge? And I know that probably depends on the vehicle, but do you have like a guesstimate?
It does. So that goal had been every 50 miles. Some of the very old vehicles like the Nissan Leaf could only go 90 miles. But the ranges that we're seeing with the newer vehicles, they're coming more in the 250 to 350 mile range, which, I mean, that's like the range that I get on my car with a gas engine. So they're very comparable now.
Yeah, things have changed. Okay, number three, how do you how do you price the charging process? Is it based on how long they charge their vehicles?
A lot of them, it's per kilowatt hour. And the thing is, when you look, and obviously we can't recommend you choose one charging manufacturer over another. When you look out there, you'll see that there's a handful of ones that are very experienced, and you'll see their information out there. And they usually have that now, 2 years after the program started, all set up, and it just, they make it much easier for you than it had been only 2 years ago.
Okay, so the process is getting streamlined now and getting easier for the small businesses doing it. That's great. I had a couple questions that I thought of that I wanted to ask you as well. What is the typical time that it takes from start to finish for this grant process?
It's really hard to say, because they're in the beginning. Some of them, it took many months for the state to kind of go through that approval process. And then it seemed to be very slow for the trust fund, because the state then has to apply to the trust fund to get the money out of it. And it seemed to be very slow. It seems like the process is starting to speed up. I'm seeing that applications are getting reviewed within, I'm saying, 4 to 6 weeks on some of them, and then they get sent into the trust fund, and that's the unknown. They're not going to get the trust fund to do anything in a week, but the amount of months that it's taking them seems to be getting better, and I just hope that they're getting their processes moving faster. So it's unfortunately, it's kind of hard to tell.
Thank you for answering that. And I've got one more for you. So what feedback have you gotten from the businesses that have gone through the whole process and they installed the chargers? Are they happy that they did it?
Yes. And the one business that we've helped get the information out to and that applied and has put in their charger, one of the things I also noticed is now it's featured up in the corner of their website, and they have a whole page on their business website highlighting their chargers. And they probably would have had an event when they opened it up if we hadn't been in the middle of a pandemic.
That's good. So they're using it as kind of a marketing and promotional tool.
Exactly. It's another way to draw those customers in.
Great. And we have one other question that's been, and if anyone has any more questions, feel free. We're still doing the questions, so put them in the Q&A. We just had one entered in, and their question is, have any hotels been awarded these grants yet?
No, but that is because, if I am correct, no hotels have applied.
Right. So basically, everyone just needs to get out there and apply. You don't have anything to lose, right?
Yes, very much so.
Okay, great. Well, if we have any other questions, I'm not seeing anything come up yet, but basically, I mean, what a wealth of information, Belinda, you've given us. And it looks like on our website, there are a lot of questions as well. Oh, someone just said, I'm going to apply the Heartland Inn in New Meadows. So good job. Well done, Laura.
Fabulous.
That's great. I mean, we have Belinda's, has these resources, and they have been uploaded to our website on her page. So take advantage of that. And also Belinda, she said that she's available to help you through the process, right, Belinda?
Yes, I am very happy to help. So you definitely, please contact me.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. We appreciate everyone joining us today. And just a reminder that we will send a recording of this webinar to you if you registered. So you will get that. And CJ has been great about putting in a lot of links in the chat that are really helpful. And those links will also be emailed out to you as well. So you don't need to worry about that as well. And of course, our website is a great resource on Belinda's page, and then also Belinda herself. So thanks again, and we hope you do take advantage of this great opportunity.
Thank you all. And please, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help.
All right. Thank you so much.